saying is that I'm no longer accepting new information as an adult. I'm not.
Tracy, I have really bad news for you.
Okay, all right.
Willing and Fable, baby.
Oh, devastated to announce that we have a podcast and I must consume information.
I'm so bummed to tell you. Because either I give you new information and only one person is disappointed, or I give no new information and lots of people are disappointed.
But one person is thrilled because their brain doesn't have to work anymore. And that person is me.
But you're my person, so I value you higher, which means we're now sliding towards, like, middle information.
Yeah. We're putting ourselves in a precarious situation.
Hey, this podcast, it's a precarious situation. I'm Rowan Hall.
And I'm Tracy Harrison.
And this is Willing and Fable, the podcast that brings you original retellings and in-depth research on the history, mystery, and mythology that makes the world so fascinating.
Each week, we research a topic from history or mythology, and then we write an original story to go along with that topic. So, if you'd like to support the show, consider heading over to our website and checking out the many pages we have there, including all of our recommendations. All the recommendations we have for you that we talk about on this podcast, we consolidate onto our recommendations page.
And you can also support the show by staying on the website and going over to our sources. You know, those academic papers that we read so that you don't have to because you don't want to.
Right.
Go over, check them out.
Yeah, we put a lot of work into it, and they're fun for us to explore, and we curate the best of the best for you, our dear listeners.
The best of the best from Wikipedia.
I love Wikipedia. I stand by Wikipedia, and I donate to Wikipedia.
I just gave them a chunk of money. Because I owe them a lot.
Yes. Or you can support the show by going up to your favorite piece of artwork hanging up in your home and telling it what a wonderful job it's doing by beautifying your space. But no matter what you do, we are happy to have you here with us today.
Okay, so at the risk of sounding too mysterious, the name of the game with today's episode is it fun or is it poison?
At what point is it poison?
It's like, I don't know, what else? My presence, poison in large doses.
Oh no, I'm not funny. What's fun in small doses and poison?
You can be my antidote.
That's the cutest thing anyone's ever said.
Honestly, did I just fanfic, like, write for us?
Yeah, that's the cutest thing anyone's ever said. I am poison, but you're my antidote? What the like, hello? Now I want to make fan art of, like, everything.
I mean, it's, like, super toxic if you chase it down too far. Not unlike, it's kind of a poisonous relationship, but it sounds great on paper.
It does. It does. It's good. It's good. She's good.
It's good. What can I say? It's good. Hey, you know what else is good? Absinthe.
Oof,
cool. That's our topic today. The Green Fairy.
Yay! I'm excited because absinthe is always something that you love to touch on, more from a historical perspective. I always think of you and loving to, like, dive into what the Green Fairy is all about and absinthe and the history of absinthe and how it was started versus how it is today. Like, this is not a new conversation for us to have, and I'm very excited.
Oh, definitely no. Definitely no. La Fivere is... I could just pull her out at inappropriate moments when it's a non sequitur. Also, I think it's worth saying, neither Tracy nor I drink absinthe.
This is true. Yeah, we have a confession here for everyone today.
Tracy has an alcohol allergy, and I do not like black licorice.
You really don't. The only person I know who likes black licorice, the only person, Casey, who is guest hosted on this show.
Kaylee likes absinthe, also a guest host.
Hey, all right. 2 of our guest hosts are representing our absinthe fandom.
So, for anyone who is sitting there going, what the heck? Absinthe is famously known as the green liqueur that's made with wormwood and causes hallucinogenic effects that lead people to see the Green Fairy. If you've watched Baz Luhrmann's Moulin Rouge, you'll remember the scene with Toulouse-Lautrec. They see a green fairy. If you don't know the context, it's a little weird.
I mean, if you're watching Baz Luhrmann's Moulin Rouge, I don't think at that point is where you decide, no, this is a strange film.
Fair. But here's the thing. Number 1, absinthe, known for being green, it can be white. Absinthe blanc, or the classic absinthe vert. And a lot of times the best absinthe is the least green.
That I didn't know. I thought the best and like most real absinthe was the most green.
It's not a rule, like the less color you get, the better. It's just sometimes really good absinthe is not particularly colorful. Also, it's not a liqueur. Because it's not traditionally bottled with added sugar, it's classified as a spirit.
Oh.
I didn't know that was a rule. But spirit fits better, also in terms of like yumminess of words, so I like it. It does not cause hallucinations.
Okay, that's a big one to drop because that's its whole thing.
Yeah.
It just doesn't do hallucinations?
Capitalism ruins the party again.
Ah. All right, I'm strapping in. Let's do it.
Politics? A little bit of eugenics.
Man, the surprise eugenics, the way it just comes up when we're not expecting it.
What? Like, of course, it's history, but sometimes. Okay. So I will say, I promise you, there will be a green fairy, though, because we are a mythology podcast. And
okay,
I picked this episode so I could write about a green fairy. Okay, so we begin at the beginning. Absinthe is a French name that comes from the Greek absinthion, but there are mentions of it back as far as ancient Egypt. It's typically made by soaking wormwood leaves, Artemisia absinthium, in
hold
wine.
on, amazing scientific name.
Artemisia absinthium.
I think that's my next D&D character.
There are a lot of good D&D character names in this, and by that I mean at least 2.
I can't wait.
Artemisia absinthium would be a really good name for an alchemist.
Yes, I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah, ooh, I'm Bill. Okay, focus, Rowan. This beverage was used by the ancient Greeks to cure a variety of maladies because they developed it as a medicine. That's how it started. Considered the father of medicine, Hippocrates prescribed it for rheumatism, anemia, menstrual cramps. Pythagoras claimed it eased childbirth. My favorite, for you specifically, Trace, Pliny the Elder.
My boy.
Described chariot race victors drinking absinthium to remind them that there is bitterness in glory. So, having emo boys drink absinthe goes back forever.
The idea that you make winners do something uncomfortable or, that they don't enjoy is so funny to me.
I like it.
Because at least as a loser, you're like, well, we don't have to deal with the gross stuff.
It's still booze, though. Like, how gross is it? There's levels of gross. It's not like...
It's true. At that point, you're probably actually learning to love the taste of it because you associate it with winning.
With victory. Ooh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
In the 2nd century CE, physician Galen would prescribe it for stomach relaxation and swooning.
Ooh.
In 1597, the British herbalist John Gerard wrote, "Wormwood voideth away the worms of the guts." What? Yeah. I hope that's a euphemism.
It's probably not.
Nope. But then when the bubonic plague hit England during the 17th and 18th centuries, it was used to fumigate the homes of the infected. If you've listened to our episode that discusses the plague, you'll know there's a lot of trying to cover up plague with good smells and then thinking that that is medicine or helpful.
We love the miasma theory of medicine. It was so wrong, except the only thing that came out of it that was good was if it smelled bad, don't touch or eat it. So not the worst advice in terms of how we've handled medicine.
It's really not bad advice.
It's just, a good smelling thing won't heal you. But don't eat garbage.
Don't shout, Trace.
Sorry, I'll lower my voice for you.
In all of these stories so far, it is used as medicine. It did not become popular as a beverage in the way we understand it as a beverage until much later. And there are multiple versions of the legend of absinthe's introduction to the wider world of drinkers. The argument being, did a man really discover it? Or was it a folk remedy beverage passed down a family through generations of women?
Ooh, can I put my guess in?
You can, but I unfortunately don't have a solid answer for you.
That's okay. I think that it was probably passed down through the women, because anytime that's even remotely brought up as a possibility, the patriarchy likes to say no and shuts it down. And so I think that the fact that it's even hinted at gives a lot more credence to the possibility that it could have been what really was going on. And it's obviously probably not one or the other, but I do imagine it's likely that it was a folk thing that women had all the time, that one man went, I invented this, and just took it.
So Tracy kind of wrote the story. I'm just going to add in a couple of names, and that's it, basically. Post-French Revolution, thousands of loyalists fled to Switzerland. Enter the retired physician, Dr. Pierre Ordinaire.
Second TTRPG character name.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. I actually texted it to Spencer immediately after I read it. I was like, you hold on to that, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
That's his real name.
That's incredible.
Provably his name.
Amazing.
So while living in Cuvée, he created a, quote, new elixir with 15 herbs and grape spirit.
Are you getting KFC vibes from it? Famous 11 herbs and spices.
Oh, 100%.
Okay, good. Glad it's not just me.
So, of course, wormwood is in there, but also numerous ingredients to make it more palatable to drink. That's a big part about absinthe. A lot of these herbs are going in here. They have some medicinal properties, but it's also like, God, it would be cool if this didn't taste awful. So among them is anise. It gets its classic green color from green anise.
Oh.
Licorice,
okay.
fennel, hyssop, barley, chamomile, spinach, and coriander.
I bet the spinach helped with the green color a bit.
Yeah, it feels like a cheat. If you don't like black licorice, as I said, you will not like absinthe. Unless you can just do it for the vibe, which I can occasionally just do it for the vibe. I wouldn't recommend it.
I will happily hold a glass for the vibe. That's what I'll do.
So there's a bar that we all go to in LA that does absinthe fountains, and I just go with my friends who like absinthe, and I order one and get to do all the fun, but it's their drink.
See, that's where I thrive, because because as we talked about before, I can't drink, so I go to bars and breweries and stuff like that with my friends for the vibe, and the vibe only.
Mocktails and vibes. So upon his death, Ordinaire willed the recipe and a large chunk of change to his housekeepers, the Henriot sisters. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Or these women were the women who originally developed it, or it was their grandmother. It depends on who's telling the story. If you go by a 1769 Swiss newspaper, it was definitely the women.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Even in 1769, they already are saying it was the women.
We love to see it.
Yeah.
Switzerland does pretty well, often. So after he died, the women made small batches and marketed it as Dr. Ordinaire's absinthe. In about 5 years' time, maybe, Henri-Louis Pernod, the father of the alcohol brand that still exists today, purchased the recipe. He opened a distillery in Cuvée, and then in 1805, to dodge taxes, he founded a bigger one just across the border in Pontillier, France.
I mean, if it works, I guess. Good for you, bud. So he originally started it in
Switzerland.
In Switzerland, and then it went across the border in 1805 in France.
Yeah, so people call Cuvée, Switzerland, the spiritual home of absinthe.
Oh, that makes sense.
Jesse Hicks writes in the Science History article, The Devil in a Little Green Bottle, A History of Absinthe, which is such a good article.
Ooh.
Please read that one. Quote, in 1830, France conquered Algeria, beginning its expansion into North Africa. As local resistance grew, the French army sent reinforcements, amounting to 100,000 soldiers by 1840. The heat and bad water took their toll, with fever tearing through the ranks. The men received wormwood to quell fevers, prevent dysentery, and ward off insects. They took to spiking their wine with it, which cut the bitterness and provided an alcoholic punch. Returning to France, they brought with them a taste for the drink, dubbing it un vert for its distinctive green color. And soon, civilians, eager to align themselves with their newly victorious empire, began asking for a green. End quote. So it was considered an anti-malaria medication. No reason to think that it would work that way.
No.
As a modern person.
Right. I think it's quinine that helps with malaria, and I don't think there's quinine in it.
Yeah, Trace, you're absolutely right. So, to quote an NPR article called Elixirs Made to Fight Malaria Still Shine on the Modern Bar, quote, in the 1960s, Chairman Mao wanted a magic bullet to stop malaria among soldiers in North Vietnam. So he enlisted top scientists to find a new malaria drug from herbs used in traditional Chinese medicine. It took 14 years and over 50 scientists, but finally, the scientists isolated a potent anti-malarial compound from sweet wormwood. It's called artemisinin, and we still use it today. But a note of caution. Artemisinin isn't found in the European wormwood used in absinthe, so a drink of that liqueur wouldn't help with a malaria infection. So, Trace, you said the right thing. They just didn't know that yet.
Yeah, that's fair. That's valid. And that makes sense.
Meanwhile, back in France, to quote the New York Times archive, quote, the practice soon spread throughout French society. In 1874, the French consumed 700,000 liters of absinthe per year, a number that reportedly rose to 36 million by 1910, a greater amount than the rest of Europe combined. Parisians spoke of the green hour during which people sat in sidewalk cafes sipping absinthe, end quote. So this is really cool. The green hour is the beginning of what we now call happy hour.
I was going to ask if that kind of translated to what we think of as happy hour.
Yeah, so it would be around 5 p.m. after work time. And if you've ever been to Paris or parts of France or seen pictures, cafe culture is a very big deal in lots of places in the world, but especially in Paris. And people would sit outside at these small tables and gather in bistros and bars drinking absinthe. And they said, you could walk down the street and smell the herbs from the liquor.
How much money would you pay to get to go and experience that?
Listen, it's not something I'm always proud of, but the Belle Epoch calls to me in a way that a time so full of syphilis and misogyny and no penicillin should not.
Sometimes your spirit and your heart can call to something your body can't carry you through.
Right. Like, I could not. But the vibes, again, okay, I want to say this right off. When we talk about vibes during the Belle Epoque, which is a really short time period, it's about 1870 to 1880, and it is specifically really happening in Paris, France. That's its center. It's this time post-war where basically a lot of wealthy or fairly wealthy white boys got to hang around being artists and paint and write poetry and have big existential thoughts in the way that cultures tend to do after wars. So the vibes are only happening for these white boys. And the bad parts of it, of being like a starving artist, which definitely happened, and being an alcoholic and painting, really only sound cool in the past tense.
Right.
If you are a woman, if you are a person of color, this is a party that you do not get invited to because of all of the isms.
Yes. Yeah. It's the same way that you see people who love vintage fashion talking about how, I love this aesthetic. I love the look. Vintage, what do they say? Vintage fashion.
Vintage vibes, not vintage values.
Right. And I think it's the same here. I would love to go into a world that looks like the Belle Epoque, but has penicillin and feminism.
Penicillin, man.
And why don't we throw in modern toilets while we're at it? And a shower.
Yeah, I found out when toilet paper was invented recently, and that I'm so bummed.
Wait, when was it invented?
In 1857, a New Yorker named Joseph Gayety introduced and first patented toilet paper. That's from Cottonelle.
That is so much later than I thought.
Yeah, and maybe that's why the Belle Epoque people were so happy, because they finally had toilet paper.
Yeah, enough time had passed and it wasn't even that much of a novelty, so you probably all had it. Anyway, let's talk about absinthe.
I love it. This is the good stuff. So drinkers around the country very quickly realized that absinthe had very high alcohol content. 45 to 74% alcohol by volume, or as we say in the US, 90 to 148 proof. That's very strong, which meant people could save money by choosing that drink. You would get a small portion of it and then dilute it with water. So you got more bang for your buck by literal volume and by alcohol by volume.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was not meant to be drunk straight. And as we'll get into it later, it needs sugar. Or I guess if you're a badass, maybe it doesn't, but we'll get into it. Okay, right now, we're going to just imagine ourselves.
Okay, my eyes are closed.
In Paris. A Paris bar. During the Belle Epoch, we'll say it's 1875, so there's definitely toilet paper.
Okay, great.
The lights are low. There's the hum of the avant-garde. It's romantic, artistic, existential, all these conversations born from the violence of the French Revolution. You're drinking absinthe prepared in the French method.
Okay.
Because it's 1875 and you don't have an alcohol allergy.
Right. I'm a different me. This is so exciting.
Right. And you know the ritual for how absinthe is prepared because you're Parisienne. So you place a sugar cube on top of your specially slotted spoon and rest that on top of the glass containing your absinthe.
Ooh.
Then you take ice water and pour or drip it over the sugar cube to mix it through the slots in the spoon with the spirit. And Tracy, you know what you're doing, so you make a perfect drink, which means the result is 1 part absinthe to 3 to 5 parts water and 1 lovely little sugar cube. Wikipedia explains the effect that this process has. Quote, as water dilutes the spirit, those components with poor water solubility, mainly those from anise, fennel, and star anise, come out of solution and cloud the drink. The resulting milky opalescence is called the louche. The release of these dissolved essences coincides with a perfuming of herbal aromas and flavors that, quote, blossom or bloom, and it brings out subtleties that are otherwise muted within the neat spirit, end quote. So adding water to it is part of the process, and it's very cool. If you have green absinthe, it goes from being clear and green to being cloudy and white, and you can pay attention and kind of watch the parts of the herbs fall out of solution.
That is really cool, and I would love to come and hang out with you and watch someone who enjoys absinthe do that. I both could not consume it, and also I don't think my palate is refined enough that I could be like, oh, now I'm tasting these herbs, and then these herbs, and then these herbs.
I've watched you cook, so I know that you could if you wanted to. Not that you would, but you could.
I could probably fake my way through it. It's like when people say, like, this coffee has a chocolate and hazelnut taste, and like, and this one tastes like watermelon and papaya, and I'm like, they are both lovely coffees that I will drink. But I'm not that refined, you know? I know people who can tell the difference and who can taste it, but, you know, I stand by my mantra of I love coffee and I'll take whatever one you hand me. I'm not going to be picky about it.
I love that. I am very picky. So this is really a ritual around absinthe. It feels almost like a magic spell. And that's kind of tied to this idea of the green fairy. It feels very special. You're not just pouring it into a cup and drinking it. And what's more, a lot of bars and bistros adopted absinthe fountains. Usually they look like large glass globes that are on top of a high metal stand, and they'll have 2 to 6 spigots. And in this way, drinkers could put their glass with the spoon and the sugar underneath and slowly drip water into their drink. Moreover, at one of these bars, a wealthy person might share a fountain with someone from the lower class that they would not otherwise meet, and that started contributing to the blending of people from various social strata within Paris.
Ooh, that's so interesting.
And all of the accoutrements for the drink, the spoon, the fountain, all of that, they're called Absinthiana. Okay,
third TTRPG character name.
A quick note, If someone is serving absinthe in, quote, the bohemian style or on fire, it may be to cover up inferior quality. This is a fairly modern invention that produces a stronger drink. One lights an alcohol-soaked sugar cube on fire, and then they drop it into the absinthe, which also lights on fire, and then the addition of water puts it out. And a longer burn time is called cooking the absinthe. It's a whole thing. It's not considered the right way to do it, but it's a really good trick because if absinthe is not properly made, it will not louche when you mix sugar with it.
Oh.
So the fire distracts from that. It's flashy, it's fun, and you can say that it affected the louche. It may have been developed as a technique in Czech bars because they were known to carry absinthe bitters, which is a fundamentally different drink than absinthe. It's not going to behave in the same way. Or it could just be a modern gimmick to sell people shots.
The other big thing that I've heard of is absinthe rinses.
Oh yeah, that's huge in cocktails. I always think it sounds cooler than it is.
I mean, all you're getting is the licorice flavor.
You're right. It's a punishment.
Yeah. For those who don't like licorice, it's like, what are you getting? You're not getting any of the fun things, everything fun you just described about absinthe, you're not getting.
I can feel Kaylee screaming right now.
We're probably, as she's listening to this, both getting texts blowing up our phones, explaining why we're wrong.
So the more popular absinthe became during the Belle Epoch, the more distilleries, the lower the cost. Companies started creating fraudulent absinthe. And to recreate the effect of louching, they would add antimony trichloride, which is also a poison.
Yeah, not good for you. That's for sure.
At the same time that this was happening, there was an infestation of grape phylloxera. Insects destroyed over 2/3 of the vineyards in Europe.
Oh my God.
This decimated the wine industry and opened the door for absinthe to become France's most popular drink. So the wine lobbyists got big mad.
Oh.
And they began to warn the French government of the, quote, dangers of the drink, despite the fact that on its face, absinthe is not more dangerous than any other strong liquor. Then the useful phrase absinthism was born, and it is considered different than classic alcoholism at the time. This is a whole phrase that is importantly distinct. It's worse, you know? We're finger wagging.
Yeah.
Because it brought with it hyper-excitability and hallucinations. In Reader's Digest, A Brief History of Absinthe, they say, quote, doctors even claimed that absinthism was a hereditary disease that could be passed on to the drinker's children. So this means not only are people getting rowdy, like with alcohol, they're energetic about it. They're not tired and sleepy. Not only that, they're hallucinating. And not only that, what about the children? This is like the perfect cocktail to scare wealthy politicians.
It's like they played morality bingo.
Oh my God, Tracy, you're brilliant. That is the perfect way to say it. That is yes. Chef's kiss, you are so right. And kind of overshadowing all of this and in different parts playing bigger roles, temperance. At the beginning, temperance is right around the corner. Through parts of it, temperance is just in the game. So by now, the drink that was once only accessible to middle and upper class folks had made its way down to the masses. Absinthe was considered fashionable, but also a drink for the poor because of all those distilleries, all of that lowering of cost. And the fact that you got so much drunkenness bang for your buck. And a Rolodex of famous artists are known to not only have drunk absinthe, but loved it and talked about it a lot. As I mentioned earlier, painter Toulouse-Lautrec was famous for enjoying the Green Fairy, Pablo Picasso, playwright Alfred Jarry. Absinthe is given quite a lot of credit for the loss of Van Gogh's ear in some stories.
I don't think I've heard that last one.
Me either, but of course, you know, it's right there for the picking. We do know that Van Gogh drank absinthe. So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
another bingo game, a Connect Four situation.
Right.
Oscar Wilde said of drinking the green spirit, quote, "After the first glass of absinthe, you see things as you wish they were. After the second, you see them as they are not. Finally, you see things as they really are, and that is the most horrible thing in the world."
Listen, I love me an Oscar Wilde quote. I think that man...
Well, I have another for you.
Oh, great. Give it to me. That man waxed poetic like no one else.
"A glass of absinthe is as poetical as anything in the world. What difference is there between a glass of absinthe and a sunset?" Paul Gauguin said, "I sit at my door sipping absinthe and I enjoy every day without a care in the world."
Can't relate, Gauguin.
That sounds like wishful thinking. Same reaction, you and I. Different words. Ernest Hemingway said, "Opaque, bitter, tongue-numbing, brain-warming, stomach-warming, idea-changing liquid alchemy. It's supposed to rot your brain out, but I don't believe it. It only changes the ideas."
Okay, I love the difference between Oscar Wilde, who's like, it's like a sunset, and you see things this way and this way, and Hemingway, like, yeah, it's a man's drink, it's opaque, it's bitter, it's numbing, it's brain-warming. It makes you think good. Listen, I like Hemingway. Hemingway's fine. I enjoy Hemingway. Give me an Oscar Wilde anytime of day. You know what I'm saying?
I do like them in comparison. I hadn't really thought of that way.
They had such different philosophies on life. It's just funny to see the two different quotes about the same topic.
Yeah. All those dudes were like, okay, we're doing the same thing. Let's all pick a different brand. I'm going to be tough guy.
Yeah.
Who wants to do soft boy? There's actually a story about Rimbaud, who was a poet, getting killed by his lover who was drunk on absinthe, which is so big not true.
Oh.
But does involve, again, homophobia into the story.
Mm.
So one of my favorite stories appeared in that fantastic science history article by Jesse Hicks. Quote, "In 1859, Edouard Manet painted The Absinthe Drinker, a realistic portrait of a street bum clad in rags and wearing a gnarled top hat. His left foot thrust forward in defiant insouciance. Next to him sits an emerald glass. Manet's painting was rejected from the year's Salon of Paris. It caused his mentor, Thomas Couture, to shake his head. 'My poor friend, you are the absinthe drinker. It is you who have lost your moral faculty.' Manet had dared to portray absinthe intoxication realistically. Indeed, his painting lent its subject an insolent grandeur. His new mentor, poet Charles Baudelaire, had declared, quote, 'One must be drunk always, with wine, poetry, or with virtue, your choice, but intoxicate yourself.'
Ooh, I like that quote.
The absinthiers idealized intoxication. Polite society did not." End quote. Absinthiers. The absinthiers. It's so good.
Yeah, there are fun words coming out of this episode. And I'm learning new ones. Did not know what insouciance meant until today. Actually, honestly, still couldn't tell you.
Lighthearted, unconcerned nonchalance.
Oh, wow, you really took a 50-cent word for what like a 10-cent word could have done.
It was a quote.
Oh, not you. I'm talking about who wrote that?
Like,
Jesse
Tracy,
Hicks?
don't call me out like that.
No. Listen, Jesse Hicks, great work. I'm just saying. You know what? Actually, thank you, because now I learned a new word. I'm taking it all back. I've turned 180 on this.
Tracy's just saying that because she didn't want to learn a new thing today.
I was very clear when we started. That's a good point. Thank you.
So, and now we're getting into my spicy favorites. It became common for bar-goers to order, quote, a ticket to get their drink, meaning a ticket to Carrington, the famous asylum just outside the city.
Ooh.
That is because people believed that absinthe caused madness and that you could and would be sent to an asylum for drinking too much of it.
That's so interesting that people genuinely believed it could make you go mad and still were so crazy for it.
It's all vibes. It's a bunch of emo boys being like, I'm putting in my mouth a cigarette and not giving it the power to kill me, like that Fault in Our Stars thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And absinthists was the term for people who went mad from absinthe, which is another good word.
I'm impressed with how well you can say all of these words.
I practiced with absinthists
And you're nailing it every time.
Thank you so much. The most systematic study of the effects of absinthe occurred at France's Maine asylum, the Saint Anne. And this is after a man named Valentin Magnin was appointed physician and chief in 1867. Magnin, another good name, Valentin Magnin?
Yeah, that is good. That is good. That's what I think that's our 4th TTRPG name.
I like it. It sounds villainous.
Although I'm thrown off by Valentin instead of Valentine, but I like it.
Valentine Magnin.
Right? Valentine Magnin's a villain.
I'm sure it's Valentin Magna or something like.
Okay, see, now I like it better like that. I can't do, as we know on this podcast, French and French accents. It's something my brain can't click with. So hearing it, I'm like, oh, beautiful.
I've really committed for this one to just being a person with an American accent. I am an American.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for my French. Magnin was of a growing group, especially made up of public officials, who at the time believed in a, quote, French race that was under the threat of degeneration.
Of course.
Which, everyone, that is eugenics.
Yeah.
There was an increased, actually, Tracy, mark down a bingo dot every time you recognize something that feels familiar from today.
Ooh, okay. All right.
There was an increased rate of diagnosed insanity, probably due to better diagnostic techniques. Not an increase in people who suffered from mental health issues at the time, although the other reason could be the increased industrialization, which actually has markedly put a strain on the social consciousness. Due to an increase in education for women, combined with the higher living standards, birth rates were also on the decline. So you'll recognize a bunch of this reflected in the white nationalism happening in America today.
Yeah, I don't like that. Mostly in the fact that it's also still happening today. It's not great. It's like the rallying cry of white nationalists, a lot of the stuff you just mentioned.
Yeah. What if they breed us out is kind of the fundamental idea behind white nationalism. Or one of them. I should say only one of the fundamental ideas.
The idea of, hey, I've heard people say, like, white people are becoming a minority. And my response is always, and? Are you worried that minorities won't be treated well?
Get 'em, Tracy.
What else are you trying to tell me? You're scared you're going to become a minority? What makes you scared of that?
Are you afraid of walking into a room and not seeing anyone else who looks like you? Is that intimidating? Do you think you won't be treated well? Why do you think that? It's the best game.
Yeah. Is there maybe a history of oppression that you're seeing and you're afraid might reflect on you, but you've never had to actually think about because you've never experienced that kind of oppression?
That was crisp, Tracy. That was,
Thank you. I do have these conversations in real life. Not a one and done conversation, unfortunately, in my existence.
It never is.
Yeah.
It's never a one and done personal conversation, even when you're trying to be on the right side of it. So it's never done. In an effort to prove that absinthism is distinctly different from alcoholism, like we talked about, in 1869, Magnin published the results of an experiment. So he put one guinea pig in a glass case with a dish of pure alcohol, and then another guinea pig, a rabbit, and a cat, each in their own cases with a dish of wormwood oil. The animals that inhaled the wormwood vapors became excited and then fell into seizures, and the guinea pig that inhaled the alcohol vapors just got drunk. From his series of experiments, he recommended a full ban on absinthe. He claimed chronic drinkers, absinthists, suffered amnesia, violent fits, and seizures.
He really stacked the study in that one direction. You only have one chance to see how one guinea pig reacts.
I really think he did a couple. I just think that they were all like that. And poisoning a guinea pig is a lot easier than poisoning a human when you only have a dish of a chemical to do it with. Not to mention, a whole dish of wormwood oil is not what's happening.
Right.
in even an entire bottle of absinthe.
It's almost like the study was just to prove his point and not for real science.
He just had a vendetta against guinea pigs. But not every contemporary of Magnin agreed with his findings. People saw through and published articles about the flaws in his methods and the incredible mental leap it takes to just not consider classic alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
The UK said absolutely not to everything he was saying, and they never really seemed particularly concerned about the drink over there. Coming off of defeat in the Franco-Prussian War in 1871, people were incredibly concerned, not only with, quote, the poisoning of the population, but also having babies that would then grow up to be the next round of soldiers. If these people aren't having babies, we don't have bodies. It was rumored that absinthe sterilized men and acted as an abortion drug. Add another thing to your bingo card.
Yeah, that's, God, a conversation we're still having in general in America today. So this is not a fun bingo game. I want to go back to the one where we name TTRPG characters.
I have at least one more okay name. I think I might have maxed out on good ones, though. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'll take one more. Thanks.
So all of this bad press surrounding absinthe that we can acknowledge a lot of which was done in bad faith.
Oh,
Although
absolutely.
a lot of it was people also buying it. This coincided with the temperance movement. Eventually, absinthe was banned in the Republic of Congo in 1898, Belgium in 1905, Switzerland in 1907, and then the US in 1912. In France, the Minister of the Interior banned the sale of absinthe as an emergency measure on August 16th in 1914. But there was so much stock of absinthe in warehouses all around the country that folks just kept drinking it. Like, okay, dude, bet.
Yeah.
But with World War I around the corner, the winemaking associations breathing down their necks, the Temperance League, the pressure from conservative newspapers, the president of France banned it in January of 1915. And then finally, Italy joined in 1932. Pernod, our guy from the beginning, our first distillery maker, continued to produce absinthe legally in Spain until the 1960s. And it was popular and entirely legal in the Czech Republic throughout. There was also a little bootlegging industry in Switzerland.
Nice.
It wouldn't be until, actually, Tracy, do you want to guess when it was allowed in the European Union again, when they would legalize it? There would continue to be strict regulations.
Ooh, okay. It was banned in
the early 1910s.
Yeah, early 1910s through the 30s. He was selling it in Spain through the 60s. I'm going to guess 65.
1988.
Oh my God. I thought this drink was like all over the world all the time.
Hold on, buckle up, Buttercup. I have another one. When do you think it was legalized in France? Like fully? Because France really held out and they made people call it a wormwood-based spirit for a really long time. And the prohibition was not lifted until, guess.
2001.
2011.
Oh my God.
The US? 2007.
I am genuinely so shocked because like we were just like alive and walking around and doing things when this was happening. And like I thought absinthe was just always a thing. Like I had watched Moulin Rouge when absinthe was still illegal in the US.
Yes. Wild.
It's insane. And that blew my mind. That was insane.
You're the best audience ever. Thank you for being as shocked as I was when I was doing this research.
Thank you for bringing these unbelievable facts to me. Given 6 more guesses, wouldn't have gotten close.
I would never. But I thought that I kind of remembered it becoming legalized in the US. But then I thought like, you know, I was a kid, so maybe I just wasn't understanding something about it when I was trying to recall. But no, Do you want to talk about murder?
Yeah, always.
Because I withheld possibly one of the most intriguing pieces of the puzzle that makes up absinthe's fall from grace. And that is a lot of publicized murder.
You sly little fox, you. You were saving it. Hook me in at the end. Although, hook me in. I've been highly invested this whole time.
Tracy, do you know what the Twinkie defense is?
No, I genuinely have no idea what that means.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I love teaching people about this. Thank you so much.
You're welcome for, you know what? I will continue to not know things for you. We established at the start of this episode, I am unwilling to learn or take in information. So happy to do that for you.
That's why we switch off.
Mm-hmm.
To quote the Legal Information Institute, the term originated from the 1979 trial of Dan White, a San Francisco politician who was charged with first-degree murder. A testifying psychiatrist pointed out that White's consumption of sugary foods, such as Twinkies, could lead to diminished capacity. Using this testimony, White's lawyer was successfully able to persuade the jury that White lacked the premeditation and deliberation elements necessary to establish first-degree murder. As a result, White was ultimately convicted of a lighter offense of involuntary manslaughter.
So he ate so many sugary foods that he wasn't smart enough to premeditate murder.
That is the Twinkie defense.
And it worked?
That is the Twinkie defense.
I mean, it what a precedent to set, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's wild.
He was a white guy in San Francisco who was a politician. Yeah, that defense would not have gotten off the ground for any other demographic.
Well, yeah, at all.
So the Twinkie defense is exactly what happened to Absinthe. A quick content warning, we're going to discuss murder that involved the death of multiple children. Additionally, there is mention of suicide. We're not going to get graphic, but if that is not your jam, please just pop forward a smidgen and rejoin us in a few. So it's late August in 1905 in the small village of Comminges, Switzerland. I hope that's right. A French-speaking laborer has just murdered his wife, 2-year-old daughter, and new baby.
Ooh.
Over their coffins, which are standing open to the air in the village, he was said to wail, "Please tell me I haven't done this. I loved my family and children so much." But his actions the previous day are in direct conflict with that. Beginning near dawn, the previous morning, he started with a shot of absinthe and water, then another, then 6 glasses of wine at lunch, then another before leaving work, then a stop at a cafe for some coffee and brandy, then a liter of wine at home.
That is so much.
Yes. Supposedly, his wife was upset with his behavior and called him, quote, lazy. He told her to be quiet. Apparently, she said, "Make me." He took the loaded rifle off of their wall, shot her in the head, then shot his daughter Rose when she came in to investigate, then went upstairs to the baby's crib and shot Blanche, their youngest daughter. During the February trial, Lanfrey's lawyers twinkied him using the poorly defined affliction of, quote, absinthe madness to account for his behavior. Albert Maheim, a leading Swiss psychiatrist, examined the man and said absinthe accounts for, quote, the ferociousness of temper and blind rages that made him shoot his wife for nothing and his 2 poor children whom he loved. The prosecution pointed out that absinthe was only a small amount of the alcohol he consumed that day, being 2 glasses compared to what we're measuring in liters for wine. The trial lasted only 1 day. He was found guilty on 4 counts of murder because autopsy showed that his wife was pregnant with their son at the time.
Ooh.
He hanged himself in prison 3 days later. The press dubbed this crime the Absinthe murder.
Of course they did. Of course.
It's a good name. That's the thing.
It's sensational.
Sells papers.
Right.
La Gazette de la Lausanne, a French-language Swiss newspaper, said of absinthe, quote, "It is the premier cause of bloodthirsty crime in this century."
I mean, points for drama, but taking away points for kind of inaccuracy.
Oh, yeah. Reader's Digest says that Comminges mayor publicly declared absinthe is, quote, the principal cause of a series of bloody crimes in our country. So there was a petition to outlaw absinthe, and 82,000 signatures were acquired.
Wow. And that's before the internet, when you can just email it to a bunch of people.
Exactly. And absinthe had, quote unquote, caused another murder that was happening in Switzerland at the same time. Geneva was rocking on with their own terrible story and bad press. Newspapers loved it so much. So they benefited from this campaign to like banish the Green Fairy.
Mm-hmm.
An earlier 1879 Harper's Weekly article warned of the dangers that now seemed like they were proven by these murders. Quote, many deaths are directly traceable to the excessive use of absinthe. The encroachments of this habit are scarcely perceptible. A regular absinthe drinker seldom perceives that he is dominated by its baleful influence until it is too late. All of the sudden he breaks down, his nervous system is destroyed, his brain is inoperative, his will is paralyzed. He is a mere wreck. There is no hope of his recovery. In 1907, the newspaper had progressed to calling it the Green Curse of France.
I mean, once again, points for drama, but I'm taking away points for inaccuracy.
This reminds me of, I don't know, the Hatfields and McCoys and so many of the other stories we've covered where news plays such a big role in the politics of it.
This more than many we've covered, aside from potentially like Aqua Tofana having like big news coverage.
That's a good point. Is it always poison in news?
And murder. Poison, sex, and murder.
So Trace, this is for you, an illustration of wormwood.
Oh, it is. It's a botanical illustration, my favorite. Okay. So this shows a bunch of different parts of the plant. In the center, you have a sprig going upwards, and it is, a central stalk with leaves kind of coming off of it. They're in a vaguely triangle shape, but then what it also does is it shows you the pods and the different kind of stages of growth of them, and it culminates in a sort of fan-like looking pod at the top left corner of the image. It's colorful. The leaves are all green, and then all of the seeds or pods are in this bright yellow.
Yeah, it is awfully pretty. If I saw it, I might be inclined to interact with it in nature. Like pick it or smell it or...
Yeah, because it's got these cool little pods hanging off of it, off of the little stems. Like, I'd want to know what's going on.
So this is the herb that, when soaked in alcohol, is put into absinthe and is causing all of the drama.
Mm-hmm.
Am I the drama?
Is it me? Am I the drama?
Yes, Wormwood, you are.
It's Wormwood. It's not the people at all.
No. So everyone's favorite question, we're back to it. Does absinthe really make you hallucinate? No. No. Big no, actually. There was counterfeit absinthe that was poison that was on the market at the time. Some of it used, quote, industrial strength alcohol because no one cared. There was no regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And many of the artists who famously drank absinthe were also experimenting with a variety of drugs. So there were a lot of things happening that could make you think that someone was hallucinating because of absinthe. It just wasn't absinthe. It was just there.
Yeah, it's just a spirit, right? It's just an alcohol like any other alcohol.
Mm-hmm. So the main ingredient in wormwood that is causing all of this drama is called thujone. That's the ingredient that can be toxic in large doses. In 1975, researchers noted similar effects between THC and thujone and thought to compare them. They have a similar molecular geometry, they can be similarly metabolized by humans, and they're both terpenoids.
Okay, so we are getting into the vein of like potentially wormwood at least could have some interesting mental effects.
That's true. It could be interesting, but we're not in hallucination.
No.
Even so, thujone doesn't stimulate the same biological response in humans that THC does. The effect is not the same. In extremely high doses, thujone can cause spasms and convulsions, which is much easier to prove with a guinea pig than a human. Nicholas Hines wrote for Thrillist, quote, tests on pre-prohibition absinthe found that most of the old spirits also lacked enough thujone to negatively impact someone's health. It's understood today that the health problems were due to overconsumption of high alcohol spirit, not because of wormwood and thujone. A wormwood solution requires 50% alcohol by volume. So it has always been ethanol that is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like it. I mean, when you can light something on fire because it's got so much alcohol in it, I don't think you can blame the other ingredients.
It's not about what it is, it's about the dose. Because thujone can be bad for people.
Mm-hmm.
But you would die from alcohol poisoning so long before you got to even within a whisper
Right.
of this situation.
Yep.
So we haven't really touched on the marketing of absinthe and how tied it is to the Green Fairy. Tracy, I brought you art.
This is what I think of when I think of absinthe. So this is this gorgeous Art Nouveau print. So for those who don't know, Art Nouveau is a style that's very famous for lots of arches and swirls, and a typical, there's a woman in the center with flowers and arches and swirls around her, and it's very vintage. And if you know who Alphonse Mucha is, he was like the king of Art Nouveau. And so this is a woman sitting profile, head tilted, looking towards the viewer, holding up a glass of absinthe against a green background, and she's in a green gown with bright yellow hair in a very mid-1800s hairstyle. Like, it's very, 1830s flamboyance. And just decorative plants all around it, and it has a bunch of things in French that I don't know how to translate.
It's an advertisement. It's the brand, and it's how much it costs.
Ooh.
And also where it's distilled, I believe, if I can read that tiny font correctly. It's a poster. It's so romantic having ads look like this. I think that's part of the reason why we like it so much today.
Absolutely, because we have these beautiful ads that you would hang this on I would hang this on my wall as an art print.
It's
and
beautiful.
It's an ad. I mean, it reminds me of J.C. Leyendecker and the way that he also did these beautiful pieces of art that were also ads that you would also potentially hang on your wall.
So because we have this artistic community participating in the marketing of absinthe, but also participating in the mythos of absinthe, how it's getting this reputation for inspiring artists, and it's linked to madness and insanity.
But when madness and insanity were also romantic.
Right. When it's fun and palatable and not that dangerous to be only spending your money on alcohol because, it's all safe.
Right.
And I think a lot of times probably for some people it really wasn't, but that's not what we're being sold.
No, you're being sold a fantasy.
Here is another piece about the fantasy. It's Albert Magnan's Green Muse. It's from 1895, and Wikipedia described it as a poet succumbs to the Green Fairy. This to me is quintessential narrative of absinthe.
Yeah, this
Green
painting
Fairy.
is beautiful. This looks like it's probably oil. Much more realistic than the last one. And it's a poet with his hand dramatically up to his face and out in front of him as though he's kind of shocked. It looks like he just dropped a bottle of absinthe on the ground. You can see the broken bottle. Very much, like we just said, that it's romanticizing madness and insanity. And so above him with her hands clutched on his forehead is a floating white woman with kind of strawberry blonde, reddish hair in a green flowing gown that wisps. She actually doesn't seem to really have legs. She kind of just wisps around him.
She's got little feet actually hidden. It is a free feet pick.
It is a free feet pick. It's just below the wisp of what looks like her movements. She's got two little feet. The big thing here, though, is she is not making a nice face. She looks mad, and actually, the word succubus comes to mind, maybe because I saw the word succumbs to Green Fairy, but it looks like she is stealing from him. Like she is the one, if this were a pleasant face and a pleasant scene, she might be implanting ideas in his brain. But in this one, it looks like she's stealing him, like who he is.
Yeah, and he's in a room that, to us, I think that balcony says, ooh, well appointed. But I don't think at the time that's what that meant. You're looking out on a balcony over Paris. There's papers everywhere, that manic artist energy. The coal fire is open and low. It just has this romantic unwellness to it.
Yeah, those floorboards creak and are warped.
Oh, 100%. But they creak out the lyrics of a song,
Oh, it's melancholic, of course.
Num 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 num. I love it. Okay, one last image, because this to me is so fun. And you'll have to forgive me for repeating myself, but the Green Fairy is inextricable from the idea of the muse.
Yes.
she is a muse. And that's part of this hallucination, ideas being implanted in your mind by absinthe. It's all very alchemical and magical and sexy ladies and like men who were in their feelings. So this is The Absinthe Drinker by Victor Oliva. He lived from 1861 to 1928. I don't know when this was painted, but it's right in the pocket.
I'd say this looks late 1800s, early 1900s. Potentially by the style of hair on the Green Fairy, maybe 19-teens-ish.
That's kind of what I was thinking, especially by the way that her body is shaped and what people were romanticizing for women's bodies.
Yeah. What I find really interesting off the bat with this photo is for people who aren't aware of both Rowan's art style and her mom's art style, this actually really makes me think of the way that both of you paint.
Oh, that's so funny.
It's the specifically the use of color and the use of it's got this style that is a love child, and I'm sure art people like are shouting at me, but it feels like the love child of impressionist with realism. Like there are strong blocks of strokes of color. Things aren't perfectly blended, but it's all very intentional. So what we're looking at is a table with a blonde man with a goatee. His hat is on the table. There's papers on it. And he's sitting with his head in his hands, looking forward. And in front of him, leaning kind of suggestively on the table, we see the ghostly figure of a green fairy. She's all green, completely. He's at a cafe or some kind of restaurant. In the background, it looks to be like a kind of hunched over older, maybe waiter is about to walk up to him.
Yeah, I was thinking waiter or possibly like theater goer who's a little bit more undone at the end of a night. Like I was putting a couple different narratives on it.
There definitely could be a bunch. And the main man in the photo, the absinthe drinker, looks, once again, like very unhappy. He seems stressed. It's not like he's inspired and blown away by this muse experience. He seems dragged down and drawn.
She also has no feet.
Yes. She also has no feet. She sort of just stops existing just below her knee.
But you did say it. This is post-impressionist, this whole period. There's no more like flowers in Giverny. We're not doing all those pastels. We're in the city. And a big reason for Paris and the metropolis of it capturing people's attention is electricity. And gas lamps, because, not everything is modernized all at once.
Right.
But Paris was on the forefront of this. As of 1870, Paris contained 20,766 street lamps. And it had, for a long time, been an initiative of the city to illuminate the street, to eliminate crime. There was a period before street lamps where they would ask people to put candles in their windows and light them for the night so that the police could see to catch criminals.
That makes sense.
After the International Exhibition of Electricity, Paris was considered the electricity capital of the world. They were all about light. There's a phrase that I love from American historian Craig Koslowski. In 2011, he coined the term nocturnalization. Quote, the expansion of social and economic activity into the night and the subsequent spread of illumination.
Oh, if that's not up your alley, I don't know what is.
It's amazing. So it's in the art that is coming from this time, knowing the artists who are making it and their experience, you can see why night culture has this mythos around it. It truly, the way that these are idealized, the green fairy that they've created, it feels like a larger mythology.
It is so interesting to get to explore this story because what started as a drink that soldiers kind of had because they had to exploded into this entire culture that for people who don't know anything about alcohol know the green fairy and they know absinthe and they know these images and they might not be able to say what it is, but they could pick out an Art Nouveau art print of absinthe and recognize it for what it is. And it is truly all around the mythos and the culture and the marketing of this one drink.
It's compared a lot to weed culture in modern times in that there is a specific culture around marijuana. Not that they are inherently similar cultures around each substance. The fact that there is an entire language
Absolutely.
that exists in the community to communicate about it.
Yes.
So do you want to hear a story?
I do. I want to hear the story you wrote. I'm so excited. I don't know anything about what this is. You didn't give me any hints. We didn't talk about it. So I'm excited.
Listen, it's quintessential Rowan is all I'm going to say.
Guard my heart? Is that what I should do?
No.
Oh.
Oh, I love that you think that that's quintessential Rowan. Thank you so much.
This is why I love you, because that is how I hoped you would take it.
Thank you.
You're a goddess among men. I adore you. Okay, I'm ready for whatever this quintessential Rowan brings.
Paris at night looks like 1,000 glittering dreams pinned to the sky. They call it the City of Light. Well, of course they do. They must. Tell the world of our majesty, our Babylon. But this is not a story of light. It is a tale of what happens in the darkness. When a young man comes to Paris, the first thing he must do before taking a single breath of air is devour a glass of absinthe. This must be offered from the hand of another, such as himself. This is important. It sets the stage, tells the audience what play they've entered. The audience being the body and mind, of course. Get started on the right foot. Let immoral drunkenness be the guide of the great poets and painters. We shall leave sobriety for the lesser men. Aubert did not have the sound advice I'm giving you, so he came like a lamb to the slaughter. Look around you at the men. So many crowded together around the fountains, laughing and carrying on. They huddle like moths to the flame and beat back the darkness of night with company. But look around again. Do you see the lonely men, the ones on the fringes sitting quietly, languidly, blinking into the darkness? Those are the artists, very likely, or they believe they are. But they are also prey. Do not dine alone if you can help it, and if you cannot, stay always within the light's cast. Imagine, if you will, at that empty table, a tall young man, all elbows, eyes like saucers, and hands grasping for everything that comes near, eager, hair like mine, freckles like these. He was new, uninitiated, and alone, and began his foray into society by crawling into the cafes. It was the right choice, mind you, simply done the wrong way. Aubert fell into his cup quickly each night. The young country boys never have the tolerance that we do, of course, but even the cheap drunks discover absinthe, the green fairy. There is a ritual for inspiration, passed among Parisian artists. The preparation: spirit, sugar, water, longing. A communion to call the muse forth from the dark recesses of your mind, the alleys, bringing with her a sparkling inspiration. She is a balm to the boredom born of fear. So, Aubert drinks and paints. He lives in a small studio shared with another. It's cold in the winter, drafty, as those places always are. Fuel costs money, food costs money, paint costs money, so he compromises, as we all do. I need paint and inspiration to live. We leave the rest to the mortal men. But it is hard to paint hungry and wanting and lonely and cold. So he begins to perform the ritual. At first, the lights are too bright, the space is too crowded. At first, the mixture is wrong, and the intoxication too swift. But he learns. We all learn. She appears to him for the first time in a cafe about to close. He is the last man slumped in his seat. He would whine for his mother if he possessed the energy. She appears behind him, arms around his shoulders, in the way that the world appears when one wakes up from an all-consuming sleep. She did not exist, and then she does. The green fairy is quick to kiss, caress, but it is nice to wake up to kisses, I think, don't you? Hello, painter, what is your name? He looks up at her, eager to ask the same question, but asking was for hours past, and he is too tired and too drunk. The lights behind her haze into sparkles, and her green eyes pull him in like winding ivy. "Give me your name," she says. "What?" He is a blur to himself, the world moving just too quickly to catch. "Give me your name, handsome." She nearly purrs, running slim, cool fingers across his hot brow. "If you give me your name, I will inspire you." He does, without a second thought, no moment of hesitation or wondering, only spirit, sugar, water, and longing. He paints like he has never painted before. The form's perfection, expression clear, colors rich, light enchanting. He paints so well that people actually want to look at his canvases, and not only to look, critique, discuss, envy. The inspiration is as rich and heady as the absinthe from which it was born, but it is also just as bitter. The magic only lasts so long, he learns. Like sugar, it dissolves itself into the light of morning. And with inspiration comes some success, and so more is needed to fuel the machine that God he hopes he can maintain. So he turns to Absinthe again. Among the throngs, among the laughter, she does not appear. Never. Though she could, she ought to. She'd have the eyes of every desperate man while they tried crafting lines of poetry around her like a rope. But she is a clever thing, and only comes to men who are alone. So Aubert spends his nights sulking in cafe corners, dripping away in misery and hunger, the pounding headache that bows his head a new constant. She comes. She always does. The green fairy waits until Aubert has cried for her, dried his tears, and cried again, until he is a sniveling, groveling thing loosened with liquor and poured out into the street. The ritual is as impoverished as the practitioner. Cheap spirit, sweet words, bitter tears, and agony. "Aubert Fouet Moreau," she shimmers. "My love," he sloshes. She giggles and pulls him to her with lithe arms. "Please, please, I am lost. I do not know what to paint. It is flat. I am lonely, my love. Inspire me, please." "Aubert Fouet Moreau." He likes the way her mouth moves around his name. "Give me some of your sanity, and I will inspire you." So he does. And then he does again, and again. He gives and he gives until he is a drunk, a wretch, a madman. There is a violence born of shattered sanity. He forgets his name, truly he does. Aubert could not speak it, if anyone asked. No matter. No one asks for the name of a man in the gutter. He calls to her again, unable to perform the ritual. It slips further out of reach each time. No absinthe now, no sweetness, no dilution. "Aubert Fouet Moreau, you call with nothing to give me, my love." Her fairy wings flutter out behind her, curving like a cat stretching in the sun. He begs for her to restore him. His words are loose, attached only tenuously with a new terror. He begs for his life, his art, his name. He has sold too much for too little. "My love." She crouches down and leans close to him, her diaphanous gown as delicate as petals, her skin summer warm on his winter cold. "Bring me another man, another name, and I will give you yours back." She kisses him like that very first sip. What? Don't laugh. This is serious stuff. It sounds like children's tales, but I tell you now so you will know the truth. The green fairy is real, no postered angel. I'm doing you a favor. Someone needs to save you from yourself. Or perhaps I've hung the forbidden fruit from the lowest bough. I see. You're interested, and now you will be led by your own foolishness right into the grasp of the green fairy. Before I begin again, would you like another drink? Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Okay, I see exactly what you mean. It's so quintessential Rowan, and I love it. Beautiful mix of a narrative story with just poetry that really felt, and I know you'll take this as the compliment I mean it to be, like the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock.
Ooh, ha. Y'all, that's a really high-stakes compliment from Trace. Thank you. Ooh.
It was beautiful. The way the story wove itself and like poetry throughout. Oh my God, I could listen to that on repeat. That was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I really wanted to indulge in this style born of this time period. Like everyone indulging in themselves and thinking they're so romantic and clever.
Mm-hmm.
And also, at the recommendation of our listeners, I have been reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, which is about a French woman and takes place a lot during this time and involves selling things to higher powers.
Mm.
And I didn't realize how that setting is so perfect for that book, because there is this notion in everything that I read of like higher powers, like muses, being available for purchase.
Yeah.
But not understanding that you are the product.
Ooh, what an interesting way to put it.
It feels a lot like social media now.
Yes. I think that's why that struck a chord with me.
Yeah. So that's Absinthe.
Yes. Oh, man, what a good episode. You did such a good job, and it was so fun to get to finally actually cover Absinthe, something we've talked about a lot.
Yeah, we talked about it so often that it didn't even make it onto the list for a long time because we've talked about it so often. We talk about art from this time period a lot, though, because we both like it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so tell me something good.
Ooh, okay. All right. My something good is that we recently had a Friendsgiving with all of our friends. And one, that was just lovely, like to get together in person and everyone brought food. But the other thing is, and I haven't really talked about this on the pod, I've been having some minor health stuff, nothing serious. But as part of it, I had to go on this insane elimination diet to try and figure out like what's causing inflammation. My sweet friend Kevin, who listens to this podcast, so Kevin, thank you when you hear this, made a whole thing of stuffing that was Tracy safe, just so that I could have stuffing for our Friendsgiving. And it was
Food
so
friends
nice because
are the best.
Truly he had to work with like gluten-free bread, no pepper, no celery, like no other spices. And it was really good. I had it the next day too. It was delicious. So
Oh, you're doing FODMAP.
yeah, a version of it basically. It's based on my blood test results, so it's like what specifically causes me to be inflamed.
I really hope gluten is not the thing because you deserve bread.
I'm sorry.
What?
Unfortunately, gluten was one of those things that I'm pretty reactive to.
After all of this time of me being gluten-free and you being like, that sucks so much for you, I totally understand. And now you're stuck here with me.
Yeah. I think I have more flexibility than you do, but I am definitely like, I will say after that Friendsgiving, when I caved and had a bunch of things I shouldn't have, I felt awful. It was worth it, but I felt awful. Fortunately, I can have dairy, so cheese is safe for me.
Good. That makes me so happy.
Yes,
I'm
me too.
so sorry about the gluten thing.
There's great gluten-free alternatives.
I want to say I got you, but you're still more cookie than me. So, maybe you got me now.
Yeah, I'll send you recipes.
But yeah, I guess with the gluten thing, you and I know Belle Epoch for us. We could not go back to that time. Too many baguettes.
I know. Baguettes, croissants. The truly heartbreaking thing is that pastries are like my favorite thing in the entire world.
Croissants is one of the things I've never found an even like sad equivalent for.
No, well, especially because you can't do dairy on top of it. So croissant is just gluten and dairy layered together. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's like, if we could replace the gluten, like the dough, I'm sure I could find a way to, enough butter, you make anything taste good. But if you can't do that.
Well, it's okay. I promise the gluten-free world is actually way chiller and tastier than everyone expects it to be.
I'm learning that. There's fun alternatives. And this isn't, the gluten thing is, I have to probably forever be very, very like resist my desire for gluten, or just know I'm not going to feel good for a while. Fortunately, I will slowly be able to start bringing back other foods into my diet, but I'm in the awful phase right now where it's like I can't have anything I want. And so to go to that Friendsgiving and then Kevin come in with 2 dishes and like put one down and be like, this is the Tracy safe one, that was really sweet. Like I've always tried to do that for other people, and it just didn't occur to me that someone would do that for me. And when it happens, it's like heart melting.
You and Kevin and any friend that like does that for food stuff it's an I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is saying like I value you, I care about you, I'm willing to put in extra work. Like even when it's low maintenance, like like Kaylee, who's the best friend in the whole world, always keeps gluten-free crackers in her house because often I'm over there for a really long time and I get snackish.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just a drawer that I can reach in and get crackers, which is like
such
the
a
best
small
thing.
I love you.
Yeah, like friends that do things like this are the best ones.
Yeah. So I love, it was so sweet. Like I've had multiple friends now reach out to me. Casey's one of them. My friend Emily, who also listens to the pod. Emily, this was so sweet. Like I have a picture of what I can and can't have right now, and they all have saved it to their phones and are specifically sending me recipes or checking. Like Casey checks in on me every day to see how I'm feeling. Like going through all of this kind of chronic health stuff has been awful, but oh my God, is it eye-opening for the amazing people in my life. I mean, you, Rowan, know more than anyone else. Like I call you every day where I'm like, I'm having these thoughts and these feelings, and you've just been amazing for it. And so my something good is, it starts with Friendsgiving and stuffing, but it just expands to like that made me sit down and realize I could cry. I love my friends so much. And the family I have around me is everything to me. And by family, I mean my family, but also like my family, my friends, like my people.
Oh yeah, family, chosen family.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny that you're saying this also on the podcast because I had this exact conversation of like, oh my God, I love my friends so much with a friend yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had it with a different friend earlier this week. Like everyone right now just seems to be coming out of the woodwork being like, my friendships are so good. Like I didn't know it could be this good.
Yeah.
And healthy and like happy. And I don't know if it's the pandemic, which is still exists for the record, but like is over in the fact that we're not all stuck in only our houses.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like people are coming out much more eager to say, I love you, or like the things that ought to be said because we all had to meet some mortality.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I are smushy people, but it's like, ooh.
yeah, that's the best way of just like, ooh, everyone else is getting smushy. Or like, I've always been the friend to just like text you at 1:32 p.m. on a Wednesday and be like, just so you know, I love you so much and I was thinking about you and blah, blah, blah. And so then to kind of get that back from other people in their own ways is, my heart is full. I love my people. But okay, now I'm going to turn it over to you. It's your turn to tell me something good.
My something good is also a friend's thing.
Mm-hmm.
Our friend Elise was in town, and so a bunch of us got together a couple times to play For the Queen.
Ooh.
It's a card-based game. It's from Evil Hat Productions. It is one of my favorite games, hands down.
Wow.
There are like 8 cards that teach you how to play. It's the kind of game you can bring to any group, and everyone will know how to play it in less than 5 minutes.
Oh, I love that. That's what I need. You know me. The second you start explaining board game rules to me, I hear TV static and the girl from Ipanema, and that's it.
Yeah, it's all RPG. It's all story. It's all vibes. And the idea is that you and anyone who's playing, we've played it with 12 people. We've played it with 2 people.
Wow. Okay.
Anyone who's playing, you're all in a retinue that was chosen by the queen to make a dangerous journey. And she chose you all because she knows that you love her.
Mm.
And each card has a question. And as you answer it, you fill out this story and you figure out who you are and why you love the queen. Like, are you the queen's son? Are you the queen's lover? Are you the queen's bodyguard? Like all of these different roles, and the story unfolds. And then at the game ends when you draw a card that says the queen is under attack. Do you defend her?
Mm.
And my friends are so insanely brilliant. The last game we played, I played the Queen's shadow, her literal shadow. I played that could devour other shadows.
Oh my god, I love that.
Sage Ryan played a tailor that could sew like clothes onto an automaton, a shadow onto a person.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos Cisco played a Leviathan.
Oh my god.
It was buck wild. And Spencer Stark played an automaton.
Oh my god, this is First of all, this group, what a fun group to play with. Second of all, what an insane cast of characters.
It's buck wild. And every time I play it, it's different. Every time I play it, it's better. I never get tired of it. And listen, y'all, it's like, I don't know, somewhere between $10 and $20, and it is worth every penny.
Okay, say the name one more time.
It's called For the Queen. We do play with a homebrew mechanic, though. In the card game, there's cards that are pictures of queens. In different art styles that you're supposed to pull and be like, this is the queen. Okay, everybody write a story. Absolutely not. We do not pick what the queen looks like. That's malarkey. You come up with it as everybody goes around.
Yeah, that's so much more fun.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, I want to play that with you sometime, please.
Oh my god, anytime. You name the bat time in the bat channel and I will be there.
Yay!
Yeah.
Well,
hey, did you learn anything new today?
Not a single fact, but thank you all for joining us and for hopefully learning many new facts. And remember that stories grow with the telling. So if you like what we do, tell a friend.
Or tell a foe. And we'll see you soon, okay? Thank you so much for joining us for the Willing and Fable podcast. This episode was written and produced by Tracy Harrison and Rowan Hall. That's me. Our logo is by Jamie Harrison, and our music is by Taylor Ash. If you ever want to watch or read what we're reading, head over to willingandfable.com for our show notes and custom merch, or find us at Willing and Fable on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok to join the discussion. We hope you'll rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast using your favorite listening source. And check out Willing and Fable on Patreon, where we have more than a few surprises for you, including custom artwork, stories, and access to our secret Discord channel. And of course, join us next time for another round of original retellings and in-depth research on the history, mystery, and mythology that makes the world so fascinating. Also, have you ever cried to just make a man uncomfortable?
No.
Because if a guy is yelling at you, and frankly he shouldn't be, nothing unmans that motherfucker like a tear. That said, I will cry by accident also.